Okay, the first thing we have to do is to run the libraries. So right now, we have only NumPy library. So make sure that you run this cell. Okay. So NP is done. So what we're going to do in this chapter is we're going to look at features of NumPy library. NumPy library is really huge. So we're going to look at what is most important features of NumPy library that's very useful for us to manipulate data. So when we bring in data from external sources and we want to make some changes and do some computations with those data, then we need to know what functions of NumPy are useful to us and we want to apply those functions. So that's what's going to be the focus. So first we start with how do we create a NumPy array? Well, even before that is NumPy array is called ND array. So that is n-dimensional array. We talked about this last week. Okay, so here ND array is multi-dimensional array, n dimensions. So and it is the library is written in a way that is very efficient in terms of speed of computation. And it also makes a lot of computations that involve looping all coded in. So you don't have to do the loops. You just say, okay, add this and that, and it will go through the loop and do all those computations for you. And another important characteristic of ND arrays, the arrays that we create using NumPy, is that it is homogeneous data. It's a given array can have only one type of data. So if one is integer, then all has to be integer. If one is floating point, all has to be floating point. If one is Boolean, all has to be Boolean. One is a string, all has to be string. Okay. Now, if you have mixed types, what ND array will do is it will select a data type in which all the elements can reside. So that's called coercing. It will coerce all elements to a data type that's possible. So if you have a string element anywhere and you have some integer and floating points around, the integer and floating point can be represented as a string. The string cannot be represented as floating point or integer, so everything will be converted into string. So if you have some integer and floating point, the integers will be converted into floating point and everything will be floating point. Okay. So homogeneous data, all elements the same type. Okay, and here are the valid data types, integer, floating point, Boolean will be true or false. Okay, true or false is 0 is false, all other numbers are true. Okay. So if you have some numbers and if you have some Boolean, then the coercion will take place, everything will be Boolean, zeros will be converted into false, and all other numbers, positive and negative numbers, will be converted to true. And it can be string, you can have date time objects, so again, everything has to be date time, or it can be time delta. Okay, and then there are three things that properties of these three are important. Shape is how many elements or how many elements are there in each dimension. So if you have a one-dimensional array, how many elements there are. If you have a two-dimensional array like a matrix, a table, so how many rows and how many columns there are. If you have 3 dimensions, so that means you have several tables, right? So how many rows, how many columns, and how many tables there are. So that would be the shape. So NDIM is simply the number of dimensions. If you have one-dimensional array, it will give you an answer of 1. If you have a table or a matrix, the answer will be 2. If you have multiple tables, the answer will be 3 because you have 3 dimensions, and so on. And D type is the data type, the homogeneous data type that's contained in the ND array. So these are some basic information about NumPy array. So creating an NumPy array is, you use this function called np.array. Again, remember this np is the nickname that we have given to NumPy. So here, so we imported NumPy library and gave it the nickname np. So that's what this np stands for. So this np will then point to NumPy, and this function will come from NumPy library. Okay. So that's the function can be used to create NumPy array. So what we have to pass as information to this function is array-like object that is required, and then you can specify a data type. If you don't specify a data type, then NumPy will automatically figure out and queries the data type for the array. So that's optional. D type is optional. So here we have, well, actually, this is supposed to have been that. Please change that. So if you have a tuple, okay, so T1 is a tuple, so you can convert that tuple into an NP array by simply saying np.array and give T1 as the data that needs to be converted into an NP array. So and then when you display it, it says array. Okay, it doesn't say list or tuple. So the tuple is now has been converted into an array, an NP array. It gives you the elements of that array. So if you have a list instead of a tuple, again that works in the same way. Okay. Now data type, if you don't give a data type, okay, NumPy will automatically assign the data type that's that all elements can live with, right? And you can also specify data type by simply putting a comma and then saying D type equal to whatever that you want. So, like if you say int, then it will become all integers. str or is it string? Okay. If you say str, then everything becomes a string, right? So you specify the data type that you want with this. Okay, so that's optional again. Okay, if you don't specify anything, then the best data type that all elements can live with will be used. Okay, and content may be string. So here is a string list, and we can use np array to convert a list of strings into an NP array. And then we have mixed data types. Okay, again, we already talked about this. So string, 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 and an integer, and we are not specifying the data type. So NumPy will automatically assign, because all of them can live with string type. So the 3 is converted into a string type. Let's see if you say D type equal to integer, then you're going to get an error because these are not, cannot, A, B, and C cannot be converted into an integer, right? So when you specify, so if you don't say anything, NumPy will automatically query the elements to the data type that's possible. If you specify a data type, then it must be consistent with the data. If not, you're going to get an F.